Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me share time and stories with you today. Thanks to the power of our online meeting platforms, we can meet today over distances. Let's hope that our world adjusts to all its challenges and we can soon return to a time where we sit with each other in friendship and service. As a Rotarian, we are very often presented with challenges which limit us in getting our Rotary work done. But no challenge is insurmountable. And the reality is that to overcome a challenge, you need courage and a plan. In other words, it really comes down to the leadership that you have to deliver your plan. We need to ask ourselves, the reality is, how small are the challenges within our clubs when we look at the big picture that surrounds us? Do we weigh the politics and ego that present these challenges within our clubs against the daily challenges faced by the poor of the world? Even in our personal lives, challenges rise up to face us, but it's the challenges that make us who we are today. Now, my story is that I was born into a true privileged white Afrikaner family in South Africa, and my forefathers were intertwined with the colonization of that whole area, the power of the Dutch Reformed Church, and the establishment of the Afrikanerdom. I grew up in a family, a church, and a community that not only accepted the premise that all races other than white were inferior and subservient, but that it was our mission from God to keep it this way. And today, this is not only a scar on my psyche, but on the world that allowed this to happen. But luckily, I grew up in Zambia, and although an idyllic life for a child, it also was a raw and heartbreaking experience where I was very soon exposed to the reality of man's inhumanity to man. Subjugation and racism and lack of respect for a human's rights to be equal and to receive equal opportunity is insidious in every facet of our lives. There is no one here who has not been exposed to it. And it manifests itself in so many ways. This is in bullying, in social divides, the haves and the have-nots. So my first exposure to this reality was when revolution came to the then Belgian Congo, and my mother, as head of the Red Cross, was in charge of evacuating all the refugees from that area. Now, at that time, I spoke French, and she very soon involved me, and it was my duty to meet the planes as they landed with their loads of refugees. That is, until that plane landed with more than 30 Roman Catholic nuns from one of the convents that had been raped and then had their hands amputated. I remember standing at the door of the plane, the smell, the soft moans, and the prayers, and my whole world fell apart. I was only 15 years old. And the very, very first time that I was presented with a huge challenge of how does one live with this reality of what one human can do to another? And how does one overcome a challenge such as this? Soon after that, I left for university in South Africa. These were unsettled times, with South Africa becoming a republic and moving into the depths of apartheid. This was the decade of defiance, demonstrations by the oppressed, charismatic leaders such as Walter Sisulu and Nelson Mandela defying the world. And I suddenly could find voice to my thoughts and questions. And I joined the banned African National Congress Party and joyously stepped into the demonstrations against the oppressive apartheid regime and straight into that huge policeman. How dared I, a white South African, speak against the government? I remember the burning feeling of righteousness, the anger, the adrenaline rush, and then the brick wall of reality when my body hit that bare cement floor of the women's prison in the old fort. My hands were handcuffed behind my back, the cold of the bare cement floor, the quiet of those around me, and the fear came rushing in, fear so great that I honestly cannot describe it. And I want you to remember, I was of the privileged white Afrikaner race. We were kept there for 2 weeks, and those memories are a challenge I have yet to overcome. Now, some time ago, I took a team of interactors to South Africa, and our Rotarian hosts took us on a tour of Constitution Hill, where the Court for Truth and Reconciliation now stands. Now, driving up the hill to our destination, I was so excited to be going to such a symbol of change. But I could feel the hair on the back of my neck rising up. I could feel the cold of a concrete floor. And I could feel this uncontrollable fear starting to consume me as I recognized that today I had to face my past and the fears that still rise in my soul. Because Constitution Hill, now the symbol of change and promise, was built on the horror of that old fort. So more than 50 years to my last footsteps on that hill, I joined the students on the tour, starting with the men's prison. And once again, my world fell apart. I had never allowed myself to face that reality, to actually see the whipping rack that men were tied to while they received the punishment delivered by order of a court, 50 lashes because you did not have your ID documents with you. I cannot describe the shame that I felt that day, knowing that I had never faced up to this challenge of man's inhumanity to man. But in looking back at what has followed since then, I realize that Rotary has been my solace and the vehicle that has allowed me to overcome my life's challenges. The magic of Rotary allows ordinary people like us to accomplish extraordinary things. Our service not only transforms others' lives, but is itself a life-changing experience for us as well. Through Rotary, we become a part of something far, far larger than ourselves. And in doing so, we make Rotary greater than the sum of its parts. I had a dream. I had a dream when I was finishing school in Zambia. My dream was to be this great big African game ranger. But life, much as it is in some parts of the world still today, had standards and barriers for girls, and I was not allowed to follow my dream. But I made myself a promise that one day before I died, I would fulfill this dream. So for my 60th birthday, I took myself off. I gave myself the gift of doing my degree in wildlife management and nature conservation. And off I went to Africa to do all my practical services, to shoot those big guns and to drive that 4-wheel drive Land Cruiser through ditches and rivers, to track the big five and get close and personal with animals that you rarely see outside of the television screen and your photos. And even today, they still talk about this crazy old woman who would run around in her pajamas at night chasing the buffalo because they kept her awake. Now, this all took place in northern South Africa in the Sabi Sands Private Game Reserve. And it was this experience that made me come to grips with the impossible dreams of youth living in impossible circumstances and the challenges that they have to overcome on a daily basis. And one morning we left the game reserve to take one of our camp housekeepers to the nearest village to drop off her children so that they could go back to school. This was a young girl of 9 and a young boy of 7, and they were left on the side of a little dusty road waiting for their ride. As we drove away, I saw tears pouring down the mother's cheeks. So I asked her, "Are you sad that you are leaving your children?" And she said, "Yes, of course I am sad, but mostly I am very, very frightened. It is the belief in this community that if a man has sex with an underage girl, he will be protected from AIDS. and I do not know if my daughter will be safe. In this instance, I was handed a challenge that to me appeared insurmountable. But there is always a solution. I was a member of a Rotary Club, a member of this powerful organization. I had the power of the Rotary Foundation, and the answer lay there. We have built schools, we have set up medical clinics, and sent teams to work with these communities. Rotary was the solution to overcoming this huge cultural belief challenge. So I've returned to these villages many times. And on one of my visits, the children in one of the schools performed a play. And I want you to remember that this is being acted out by 5 children under the age of 7 in a kindergarten class. The name of the play is The AIDS is Coming. AIDS is a killer. No, AIDS is not a killer. You can wear a condom. Come, let's go to the doctor to be tested. Pretend doctor and nurse and patient take blood and do a pretend test. The doctor turns to the little patient and says, so sorry, you are positive. The child pretends to cry, and the friends comfort and say, don't worry, let's go shopping and buy your drugs. Here, now, is a community that has overcome a challenge of cultural beliefs that led to terrible circumstances. But it could never have been easy for people to make that change. It could never have been easy for those men in the communities to start thinking differently. Now, last year, again, on a visit to the school, just before COVID, another part to the play, a young 5-year-old girl dressed in pink stands in front of me and she says, this is my body. It is a temple of God. Do not touch my body. You do not have my permission to touch my body, and you do not have God's permission to touch me. Do not touch my body. Young girls being taught. Young girls being empowered. Thank you, Rotary. Some years ago, early, and it was a Wednesday morning, my phone rang. A very special cousin of mine in South Africa saying, Dean, please come. My husband has been shot and killed. Now, Ria and Don had 2 small children aged 4 and 2. She is a medical doctor and Don was a veterinary surgeon, and they had their practices and home on a large piece of ground in one of Johannesburg's suburbs. 10 a.m. in the morning, 3 men entered Don's veterinary surgery and shot him execution style for the $10 that he had in his pocket. He died in Ria's arms. Of course, I got there as fast as I could. And, you do what you can. And I used to answer the phone when they rang. And on the Monday morning, the police called, saying that they were releasing the crime scene and that we could now clean up. Simple words. But who was to clean up? The family? Friends? There's no service to clean up a crime scene available there. So on my hands and knees on the floor, washing up Don's blood, I was struck by a feeling that I had never, ever experienced before. A hatred so deep and so ugly against human beings, and a burning need for an answer to a question that may not actually have an answer. Don's wife and children to face the challenge of life resulting from this hate crime. Why? The murderers? Why? Memories of all that I had seen in my life, encompassing man's inhumanity to man, were all mixed up within these thoughts. So many questions about life. And in the plane flying back to Canada, these thoughts were constantly milling through my mind. And the reality is that there really is no answer. We scar people so easily, and when those scars affect or divert what we consider to be normal behavior, ask yourself the question, who is to blame? All that I know for absolute certainty is that we must do something to overcome the challenge of hate, and we can. And that Rotary is there with its striving to bring peace and human understanding to all. Bono from the band U2 says, "The circumstance of our birth should not dictate whether we live or die, whether we have equal opportunity or not, whether we sleep in poverty or not." This is the reality that drives us as Rotarians, the need to make sure that no matter what the circumstance of birth, every individual has equal opportunity, equal respect. I believe that Rotary can overcome these challenges and has changed the world by listening to the needs of communities and individuals and giving them the respect and means to become whole. Rotary allows us, as I've said before, one individual, an ordinary person, to overcome extraordinary challenges. At this difficult time, Rotary is bringing people together. As the world needs Rotary to help the most vulnerable, and Rotarians need each other to stay connected and to take action against COVID-19. I am so proud of the work that Rotary members and the Foundation are carrying out to stop the spread of COVID-19 and to help people affected. I am proud of the fact that your hard work is being recognized. Did you know that Rotary was recently ranked in the top 10 volunteering organizations by LinkedIn, which tracked nonprofits with the highest average number of monthly volunteers? So it's very clear that our mission has never been more important. We took public health action long before COVID appeared. And because of our polio experience, we are making a difference today by finding ways to apply our knowledge and experience gained in this amazing fight against polio. It is being challenged into the COVID-19 response. The polio eradication program is already using the advanced disease eradication infrastructure to protect the vulnerable from COVID-19, especially in the polio endemic countries. Countries have resumed polio immunization campaigns, with every effort being taken to ensure that health workers remain safe and do not contribute to the spread of COVID. And today I learned that the Taliban in Afghanistan are supporting our polio vaccinators by accompanying them in their community outreach vaccination efforts. This is good news and highlights just how much faith there is in this program. We must celebrate that through the 30th of June 2021, our foundation has raised and invested more than $5.5 billion for programs that have lasting effects in our communities. These programs empower Rotary members to continue promoting peace, fighting disease, providing clean water, saving mothers and children, supporting education, and growing local economies all over the world. And now we have added the environment to our portfolio. This past Rotary year, we set an ambitious fundraising goal of $410 million US. Rotarians rallied together and helped the foundation surpass the goal. And in total, we raised over $440.9 million. Congratulations, Rotarians of the world. So thanks to these generous Rotarians and friends of our foundation, we awarded more than $143 million for global grants. Grants for polio eradication totaled $152.9 million. Now, this is just a little window into the work that the Rotary Foundation does. And it does it because of contribution from folks just like you. Without your donations, nothing can happen. You are the grease around the axle on which the wheels of Rotary turns. Fundraising is always a challenge, but it is also an opportunity. and it needs to remain our focus. When we talk about overcoming challenge, as you know, I always have to end with a quote from my hero. We have to acknowledge one man who stands out above many for having the courage to remain a true humanitarian, morally and ethically uncompromised, courageous beyond compare, despite every injustice that came his way. And his name is Nelson Mandela. This is a quote which I think is so true for us in Rotary. He said, "I have walked that long road to freedom. I have tried not to falter. I have made missteps along the way, but I have discovered the secret that after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. I have taken a moment here to rest, to steal a view of the glorious vista that surrounds me, to look back on the distance that I have come, but I can only rest for a moment, for with freedom comes responsibility, and I dare not linger, for my long walk is not ended." As leaders in your district, as members of Rotary in your district, you can motivate, educate, and influence. The challenges you will face will be both large and small, but each will be important to you. And to take on this mantle of leadership and make it effective, you will face the challenges with courage, and in doing so, you will find your solutions. So thank you so much for this opportunity to spend time with you. I wish you peace and courage to overcome all the challenges in your way as you move forward hand in hand with Rotary. Goodbye.